Hey, Jill Wilson, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. It's so great to see you again.
Yeah.
We had a chance to meet and present together down at the Leading Age Conference down in Atlanta last year, which would have been 2021, and just really appreciated your leadership style and your insights. And so I'm really excited to have you on the podcast today so you can share some of those with the rest of the world. And maybe we can just start with, you've got a 13-year plus history with Otterbein. You guys are working in Ohio and Indiana with about 2,300 employees, and you've helped to grow that organization pretty impressively. So maybe we can start with just your story. How did Jill get to be the CEO? And tell us a little bit about your background.
All right. Well, good morning, Tom. And let me just say, first off, thanks for having me to your podcast. I feel very privileged to be able to meet and chat with you and your membership, or your viewership, I should say. And I did enjoy our time at Leading Age National talking about a favorite topic of mine, which is leadership. So thank you for that. What was the question? How did I become the CEO? Is that the question?
Yeah, just a little bit about your story, whatever you want to share with us.
Okay. Well, I cannot tell a lie. During the heat of COVID, working as a CEO of a senior living organization, there are times when I ask that same question of myself. How did I become the CEO? But where do I begin? Well, certainly not directly. I didn't start my career out thinking I wanted to be the CEO of a very innovative, very prestigious organization like Otterbein. I started out my career, actually, I didn't know what I wanted to do, if truth be told. And in my quest of trying to figure that out, I attended 5 colleges and universities before I got my bachelor's degree. Not something that people usually go through, particularly those who are CEOs, but that was my path early on.
Which I think is so great. One, that you're willing to be that honest with the audience, and two, for those listening to realize that there's no one way, there's no one right way to become a CEO. That literally every story I hear is different, and it's just so cool to hear that despite that, it doesn't really matter. It's really, what do you do with the rest of your life? How do you keep working towards something and end up? Sometimes you just end up in the CEO seat. At least that's how I got there. But anyway, go ahead with the rest of your story.
Yeah. And so my dad finally gave me some counsel, and he said, Jilly, you're good at math, and if you become an accountant, you could probably make a decent living at it. And I thought, well, okay, I'll do that. And actually I was good at math. And so I did finally get an accounting degree after attending 4 universities and colleges, a couple community colleges, and then a few 4-year schools. But so then I became a CPA, and I really started to get some momentum going and feeling like this was a great direction for me. And I worked for, as a practicing CPA for a couple different CPA firms, and found myself at one that specialized in senior living. And, I had begun to formulate a future for myself, which would be to become a partner in the CPA firm that I was working at. And my firm at the time specialized in serving senior living organizations like Otterbein, who have retirement communities or nursing homes or whatever. It's a big business, actually. There's a lot of business out there serving this population, and there was a lot of work to be done. And my job was certainly to do all the traditional accounting things, but also I found my niche to be as a consultant. So I would go to my clients, and my job was to help them become more financially viable. So I would, I'd sit down and I'd show them these really beautiful mathematical analyses that I did. They all everything added down and added across, and benchmarking and variances. And I'd say, looky here, to executive directors and administrators, look here, if you cut your nursing staff, because clearly you're overstaffed here, look at this line, and you're spending way too much on food and this and that. And I give them my analyses, and I'll feel great that I just told them how to solve all their problems, and then I would leave and nothing would change. None of their problems were solved. Nothing would change. And they'd continue to experience the financial discourse that had brought me there in the first place. So I got to thinking about that, and I realized if I can't help my clients, I might not be able to get to become a partner in the firm. So I need to learn a little bit more about how the organizations, senior living organizations that I serve, work, because they're clearly not listening to me. They're clearly not taking my advice, and they're not getting better. And I'm so smart, I think maybe if I learn more about them, I can help them better, and then I can be a partner in the firm. So I had a client. It happened to be Otterbein, and they were one of my largest clients at the time. And an executive director over one of their retirement communities said, I think it would be good if you came to us and you did a 9-month internship through the Ohio Department of Health. And at the end of that internship, you could become a licensed nursing home administrator. And I thought, that'd be great. I could put LNHA behind my CPA, and my clients would think I'm smarter, and it'd be great. I'd have another credential to become a partner in the firm. And so I did that. It was a 9-month internship. I worked 9 months full time in the retirement community. I worked at night for the accounting firm. I was a single mother at the time. But I got to work in all the different departments. So I worked in housekeeping, I worked in laundry, I worked in the kitchen, I worked in nursing, I worked in transportation, for 9 months. And while I was there, I started to have these feelings like, wow, this is really something. What's going on with me? I don't understand. And what I came to realize is that I look really forward to being with the people at work. Like the people that work in senior living are nurturers by nature. They're caregivers. They come to work and they give love. And it felt good to feel like I was part of that. And then the people that we serve, the seniors, the older folks, they actually seem to care about me. They were so giving of their life experiences. They were so interesting. And I looked forward to seeing them every day when I would go into work. And I realized, not that working with accountants, they're not nice people. They are nice people, but this was different. And I started to feel like this pain in my chest. And I think I kind of, the analogy I use is if you think about the Grinch, right? And the Grinch's heart, like it's small, and it starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. I realized that was what was going on. My heart was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it wasn't like, oh, I have a heart, but it kind of was. And at the end of the 9 months, now granted, this was a retirement community that was losing money. And I was able to use some of my skill set to help. And at the end of the 9 months, they were actually making money. And the CEO said, I want you to come and work at Otterbein. I don't know what your job will be, but I want you to come and work. And I said, okay. And I quit the firm. And I can remember calling mom and dad, and I remember telling daddy that I was going to work in the nursing home in the retirement community. And I remember hearing my dad say to my mother, Julie's going to go work at the home, Carol. Julie's working at the home. And he said, no, they're not homes. They're not homes. But he didn't quite understand why I would give up my career as a CPA and work in the home. But it's worked out fabulously. And I learned so many lessons. And I think one of the key things I learned was not just how wonderful senior living is, but what I learned is that where I would go in and I would tell people what to do through my mathematical analyses, the opposite is true in leadership. Because what I got the chance to do, where I knew numbers were off, I got the chance to work with those department heads. And they told me what they were doing. And with a little bit of steering and challenging, they provided the answers to the problems in a way that they could be solved, right? They had the knowledge. They just needed a structure to be able to share their knowledge in a way that would create the financial viability that the organization needed. And that was also an incredible moment for me as well, to know that the truth and the way is predominantly found in the people that are doing the work each and every day. As I said, when we started that retirement community was on track to lose about $1.5 million a year. And when I ended the internship, they were on track to generate a $500,000 surplus.
Wow.
And none of the ideas that changed their course were mine. So that's
they weren't yours, but what I heard in that is you started to lead. You instead of providing a data set of spreadsheets and whatnot, you actually started to engage people and started to animate their hearts and started to lead them and get them to come up with their own solutions and have the ownership in that.
Right. But it wasn't like, hey, I'm in charge, because I wasn't in charge. I was an internship. I was an intern. I wasn't in charge. But it was effective. It really was effective. And that actually was 26 years ago. So I've served this organization for 26 years, and I've had lots of different jobs leading up to my position as CEO, and certainly never had intended, or even at the end of my vision for becoming a partner. When I started out at Otterbein, my vision was never to become the CEO. I just became enamored with the work and the mission and how I could contribute. And that was enough for me, honestly, until the CEO decided to retire, and started to have conversations with me about the possibility, which I denied, because the responsibilities of a CEO are enormous. And being the steward of a nonprofit mission that is incredibly important to the constituent groups that it serves, and all that comes with that seems like an overwhelming task. So initially I was not interested in exploring that, but the CEO really had a lot of confidence in me, and he allowed me and supported me in engaging in educational opportunities outside of our organization. So I went to the Wharton School for strategic planning events. I went out to Los Angeles and San Francisco for a lot of educational events that really helped. But also, you know, I'm a numbers person, right? Love the numbers. He supported me, and the organization supported me in pursuing a degree in organizational development. In organizational development, a master's degree in organizational development from Bowling Green State University. And that program I characterize as tree hugging meets business, right? Because organizational development, as I was taught, is really about the human processes within organizations that drive outcomes. And it was filled with psychology majors. And then there was me, this accountant. And they looked at me funny, and I looked at them funny. But in the end, that truly was really a life-changing event that I think eventually led to a major change in my behavior, in my outlook on leadership, that enabled me to be open to becoming a CEO. And I think the possibility of becoming a successful CEO. Let me just say that.
Yeah. Which is interesting because it certainly didn't dawn on me until just now, Jill, but a lot of the CEOs that we work with around the world, across the country, have that similar sort of reticence almost to becoming a CEO. You know, there's almost I know I was the same way. I was 34 years old, and I was like, wait a minute, I want it, but I didn't want it. You know, there's that reticence to really step up and become a CEO. So for you, it sounds like you had a shift in your mindset, you know, a shift in, I think I can actually do this, and I can actually do this successfully. So for all the young leaders out there, what advice would you have for them who are maybe thinking, well, I can't be a CEO?
Yeah, well, I think that, well, first off, if I can, anyone can. I can tell you that right now. And I think that you have to follow, I think you have to follow your intuition. You have to constantly be open to growth. And if you are constantly open to continually growing your skills and your intellect and your emotional fortitude, and emotional fortitude, I would guess, is the number one reason people choose not to become a CEO, because emotionally, they don't believe that they have the capability to manage all of the pieces and the parts that come along with that. And once you get to the point where you're emotionally vested in that possibility, then you can become intellectually vested. If that makes any sense.
Makes a ton of sense to me. And I'm an engineer, you know, I worked for Intel and PricewaterhouseCoopers. In many ways, we have a similar story.
Mhm.
You know, I was all about the numbers. I worked for some big companies, did the consulting, and oftentimes the consultants come with these brilliant plans, but then they fall short on execution because they forget to involve the human beings, and they forget the emotional piece of it. That I believe we humans are primarily emotional beings, and we justify our emotional, you know, reactions, our emotional decisions with data and logic later, after we already made the decision. So it makes a ton of sense to me. And I love that idea of emotional fortitude, that it takes a very intentional growth plan for yourself around how am I going to grow as a leader. and get better and better and better, because there is no perfect leader. It's just who's the best leaders I've found are the ones that are just never stopping. They're never stop growing and getting better.
Yeah, and I would also say to those folks out there that you have to control that growth plan, right? You can't wait around for your boss or for your you or HR department or whatever. You have to take the initiative to establish your own plan and work it to the best of your ability. You know more than anyone what you need. My daddy always used to say, you hear my dad, he used to always say, you're the first to know you haven't done your job. And so that's a little out of context in this, in what I'm saying here, except for the fact that I think you are the first to know what you need. Nobody knows you better than yourself. So take charge of your future by endeavoring in things that will help you grow and challenge you in ways that might be uncomfortable. I mean, going through that OD program for the first 6 months was like touchy feely. Oh, get me out of here, but in the end, it served me well. And I would say the more discomfort you feel in your growing and your learning, the more effective it is, for sure.
Yeah, that the growth zone is by definition outside of the comfort zone. And if you want to grow, you have to get uncomfortable. It's great, the notion of responsibility really for your own growth and learning, because I could not agree more that, if you want to be a leader, you got to take control and responsibility, because otherwise you can fall into the category of a martyr or the victim or a whiner. And none of those things will get you where you want to go. It may make you feel good because you got someone else to blame, but at the end of the day, you got to take ownership for your own life and career path. And that's not any different than becoming a CEO. I want to shift just a little bit here because the time is flying by, and we're literally, hopefully, sort of at the peak of Omicron, this variant of COVID. Here in the Midwest, it's late January of 2022. Obviously, you're running homes and whatnot. They're helping the elderly. Hugely challenging. The fact that you're even joining me today is a bit of a miracle. And so thank you for your time, because I know you got 1,000 things on your plate. How are you doing it, Jill? How are you mustering sort of the energy and the courage and the positivity and enthusiasm and optimism, all those things in such a challenging time like this?
Yeah, well, it is challenging, and it certainly has been challenging for everyone, everywhere, in any place, right? Yes, absolutely. In senior living, particularly in the very beginning when nursing homes got hit hard, and as part of our organization, we have 17 nursing homes. So it certainly has been the challenge of my life professionally. But I think you do it like you do anything else. You put your mind to work. And let me just share just one story, because again, I work in a field that teaches me every single day about life. And very early on, when COVID hit, we had the horrible task of having to isolate our residents who live in the nursing home in their rooms for a certain period of time. And we had a chaplain who would go to the doors of our residents, and he shared a story with us. And he would, knock on the door and look in, all masked up and everything. And he said, "Are you okay? Are you doing all right?" Now remember, the people that we serve, they're older. They're in their late 80s. They're in their 90s. They might be 100. years old. They've lived their lives. And predominantly what he would say is, they would say, this is nothing. You should have been around for World War II. This is nothing. This is not, and it struck me as real wisdom that that I was serving people who had been through a lot worse than this. And the wisdom in the nugget of that, this is nothing, certainly provided a basis for us to get to work, right? And it's simple. I mean, honestly, it might be overly simplistic, but the reality is what we needed to do was to develop an operating system, a new operating system that would combat Omicron, would combat the variant, would combat COVID. And so we framed it in our organization as the Otterbein offensive. And we launched an operating model across all of our organization that was designed off of our firsthand experiences in the community, our community that got hit initially. So they were able to share their real-time knowledge, their real-time learnings, their real-time experiences in battling COVID in a way that allowed us to take their knowledge and turn it into an operating system that we call the Otterbein offensive to combat COVID across our entire organization. And I couldn't be more proud of the work that our team has done. And I would say the folks on the front line, and I'm not on the front line, they're the real heroes, the ones on the front line who were able to bravely have those firsthand experiences and share them with us in a way that created knowledge, was without a doubt the true ingredient to, I would say, our success. And I hate to use the word success and COVID together, but our success in developing a very effective offensive that has saved lives and limited the spread across Otterbein.
Such a powerful story. And the takeaway being get to work, that's a great reminder for all of us that, the things we complain about really in the stack of complaints isn't all that significant. When you look at the course of human history, it reminds me of my grandma. She used to say when someone was complaining, she'd say, just shake yourself, just shake yourself and get back to work.
That's right.
Stop complaining. She would say, if it's not your arse, it's your elbow. If you're not complaining about something, you're complaining about something else. So stop complaining and get to work.
That's right. Well, you had a wonderful grandmother, obviously.
She was amazing.
Woman. Yes.
She was amazing. She came from coal miners. Well, they came from Scotland and Ireland, then to Pennsylvania, coal miners. And then she was a teacher, one of the first women in her family to ever go to college. And at night she would do women's hair. I mean, she was the ultimate grinder, working 12, 14, 16 hours a day, never complained, just kept showing up and getting to work, which I think is a lesson we could all use right about now.
Right.
Is stop our belly aching.
That's right. And I'm sure she was also fulfilled by her work.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And felt it meaningful and that she was making a difference to the people that she served.
Yeah, you had mentioned before we started the podcast this idea of emotionally preparing ourselves, and that's what I think I hear in all of this is you gotta just emotionally prepare. You've got to be ready for the next phase and the next phase, and not sugarcoat it. This may not be the last variant of COVID, so let's not sugarcoat it. Let's be real about it. But what can we do to emotionally prepare? So as a leader with 2,300 employees spread out across a couple states, how do you do that? How do you help your people? How do you help that many people sort of get emotionally settled and prepared for the future?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it certainly is a challenging task, but I think in the end, um, there is an enormous amount of resiliency in us as human beings. And if you recognize the fact that whatever you're doing, wherever you're doing it, however you're doing it, is important work, is making a difference, and is meaningful, then people will do whatever they have to do, right? They'll rise to the occasion as long as they feel like it's important, it's meaningful, it makes a difference. So, constantly recognizing that fact, creating an environment that celebrates that, even in the worst of times, is what makes that possible, if you will. I would say that I don't have one sort of strategy, if you will, other than making sure that you have an environment, that we have an environment that creates a sense of importance, of contributions, of meaningful work for everyone in the organization. At Otterbein, we call ourselves partners. We don't call ourselves employees. We don't call ourselves I don't know, whatever else people call themselves. We call ourselves partners in caring, because there's no one job that's more or less important than another. And so again, it's really about being sure that there is an environment where those contributions are recognized and felt, and shared and celebrated. That's why people come to work. We can shout out, business achievements and financial gains and all of those things, but that doesn't get it. That really doesn't get it for most people. It gets it for some, but not for most.
Jill Wilson of 26 years ago would have laughed at you.
Yes. No. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so what's all this foo-foo you're talking about, Jill? All this leadership stuff and giving people meaningful work and connecting, having them see their purpose and that it's valuable and it's of service to other people and blah blah blah. What's all that stuff?
Right. I know it, but there is so much power in that.
Oh yeah, it's the ultimate power.
Yeah, that's where the power is.
It's the ultimate power. You strike me too as someone that brings a lot of just natural, genuine enthusiasm. And I don't mean like cheerleading sort of woo-woo, maybe not genuine. I mean a genuine sort of enthusiasm for what you do. And you just show up to get to work every day. And I just learned that enthusiasm has a root of sort of the God-given power within all of us, that it's really unfolding because of that. Now that may or may not land for some people listening, but whatever it is, there's some spirit, there's some energy inside of us that brings about that enthusiasm to show up and go to work every day. I'm curious for you, how do you find that day to day in such a challenging time?
Well, that's certainly a good question. I guess I haven't thought much about it, enthusiasm, but I would say that that I think that knowing that when you come to work, you're surrounded by people who are capable of so much, and who do so much and who achieve so much, and you're in an environment that frees them to be the people that they can become, the leaders that they can become, is a great charge every single day. I mean, that certainly is where I get excited, is to see people growing and achieving and learning, and recognizing the fact that there is always more to be done, and that it is being done, and you're continuing to be part of something that is constantly growing, moving, and serving. It's hard not to be enthusiastic about it, honestly. And again, for me, I am blessed to have a team of leaders who are philosophically aligned with that. And so that transcends, I think, across the entire organization. And we like to have a lot of fun too. We like to laugh and engage in jokes and talk about football.
Don't forget to have fun. That's right. Even when it feels like the world is challenging or crumbling, try to find a way to have fun. Well, as it always does, Jill, our chat's time to fly by. So maybe I'll wrap up with just a recommendation from you for a book. What would you recommend to the audience to check out?
You mentioned that to me right before the podcast, and I thought, oh, I have to think about that, because I haven't read a good book in a long time. But I've read a lot of professional journals, and I think any professional book that you read you can take nuggets away from it. So I have to say that you also have to give your mind some rest from work. And that is a great way to regenerate yourself. So the series that I liked a lot was The Lady with the Dragon Tattoo, the trilogy. I highly recommend that. It was done exquisitely, in a way that got my mind, my imagination working overtime. So just a good read, entertaining, and a nice break from being a CEO.
Yeah, which I love, Jill. Most of the time we get more of a academic read or a business book, and I love that. Just whether it's Lady with the Dragon Tattoo or
Yes.
it's something else, that's completely fictional and fantasy, just to give yourself a break, give your brain a break, which our brains do need. We need that time to clean out, all the sticky plaques that built up. So I love that recommendation. That's great. Well, thank you, Jill. This has been great. It's been great to spend a little time with you again, and look forward to talking again soon.
Well, Tom, it was great spending time with you, and thank you for all you're doing out there to help create great leaders. We need a lot of them. And for those who are listening, you can do it. There's no doubt about it. The world needs great leaders. So thanks, Tom, for your work.
Thank you. Thank you.